How can we solve a problem if we're not allowed to talk about it? Or if we are allowed to talk about it, everything we say will be dismissed and nothing will come of it? What if honesty is casually dismissed as extreme far-right conspiracy theory? What if one political faction controls the media and social media and the education system, the corporations, and advertising? What if saying things that are factually correct is labeled as wrong speak, and people can be sent to the Ministry of Truth to be re-educated? What if we're living in a real-life 1984? In the novel 1984 by George Orwell and his essay, Politics in the English Language, there were some concepts that have become remarkably relevant in the modern day. Let's start with the concept of newspeak. In 1984, this was a language created to shrink the range of thought. By eliminating words related to abstract concepts like freedom, the totalitarian party made it impossible for citizens to think rebellious thoughts. This reminds me of political correctness. George Carlin did a stand-up comedy bit about this, and he referred to it as soft language. He said Americans have trouble facing the truth, so they invent the kind of a soft language to protect themselves from it. And it gets worse with every generation. This is newspeak, straight out of 1984. He gave the example of the term shell shock, which was very simple and direct language used to describe the psychological effects that soldiers experienced in the First World War. In the Second World War, the same thing was referred to as battle fatigue. Then in the Korean War, it was changed again to operational exhaustion. Finally, in the Vietnam War, the same psychological condition was labeled post-traumatic stress disorder. As George Carlin said in his comedy routine, the pain is completely buried under jargon.
Now, Josh, I played a clip of Stephen Miller earlier in the program, refusing to accept in an interview with CNN the anchor's use of incorrect terms like undocumented migrant as opposed to illegal alien or illegal immigrant. You've had some thoughts on this. I know you wrote about this for Newsweek. Why is it so important that conservatives push back when the left tries to use their preferred terms?
So I love Stephen Miller. I'm a longtime unabashed Stephen Miller fan. I love the fact that he is wielding so much power in the Donald Trump White House there. But this particular fight, Rita, is deeply important. For literally decades, the left has understood what both George Orwell and Saul Alinsky, the great left-wing Chicago community organizer, they both preached a very similar message, which is that he who controls the language necessarily controls the discourse. You control the discourse, you control people's minds, you control how they deal and how they interpret and process reality there. But the left uses all sorts of ridiculous euphemistic language, so-called gender-affirming care when it comes to physical or chemical castration, undocumented immigrants for illegal aliens there, bodily autonomy when it comes to snuffing out even a third trimester unborn child in the womb. I could go on and on and on. Essentially, no matter what issue you look at there, the left here in America has mastered the art of the euphemistic imperative. And Stephen Miller, I think, is leading this charge to fight back against it. But the onus now is on everyone else to continue this there. You cannot let the left control the terms of our discourse, because when you allow them to do that, they're ultimately going to set themselves up for victory in our great cold roiling civil war in this country.
Reality is being obfuscated by soft language. If we cannot use accurate language and speak honestly about anything, we cannot accurately understand the world around us, which makes us much easier to control. Next, let's explore the concept of doublethink, a related concept from 1984. Doublethink is the act of holding two contradictory beliefs at the same time and accepting both as true. This was a core part of the party's brainwashing to control the population. The clearest example of this is Schrodinger's feminist, the cognitively dissonant belief that women are simultaneously badass boss babes who can do anything, and also helpless victims who cannot be held responsible for anything that happens in their lives. The danger of people being convinced of such obvious absurdities can be found in a quote from Voltaire, most accurately translated as, "Anyone who has the power to make you believe absurdities has the power to make you commit injustices." The belief that women can do anything makes it more likely that women will be granted important positions in our society to which they are not well suited, and the belief that women are helpless victims makes our society bend over backwards to cater to women, often at the expense of men.
Okay, so is your view of feminism that it is pointless because there
Yes.
can never be egalitarianism?
Well, so you just earlier, and no offense, I'm just going to point this out so that you know, you spoke out of two sides of your mouth. You said, I don't believe that men would collectively come together to use some kind of force against women. But when I asked, why would you need feminism then? You said, well, because we need to have some kind of force to protect ourselves from the patriarchy. Well, both of these things cannot be true at the same time. This is where we come to what we call Schrodinger's feminist, which is I'm a strong, empowered woman, but also a victim at the same exact time. And it can't really be both. It has to be one or it has to be the other. So if you're a strong, empowered woman, and what it is that you want is some type of equal force to push back against the patriarchy, I think we've just discovered that that's not even a possibility. So what's really going on is you want some sort of political power, right? But you can't enforce the political power.
Well, that is, and
It is a grave injustice for women to enjoy all of the benefits in our society without being held responsible for anything. Men are expected to take all of the responsibility without receiving any of the benefits. This has been made possible because of doublethink. The final Orwellian example of the control of language brings us to the concept of meaningless words. In his essay, Orwell criticized politicians for using vague, abstract, and meaningless words to defend the indefensible. He argued that unclear prose can corrupt thought, and that this process is self-perpetuating. The best example of this is the use of euphemistic language to obfuscate reality and cover up atrocities by making them sound benign. This can be observed when feminists frame abortion as reproductive health care, or when gender ideologues refer to the psychological manipulation, chemical castration, and surgical mutilation of children as gender-affirming care. They want to make these things sound very positive, so they can paint anyone who opposes any of this as heartless monsters who just want to take nice things away from people. Nobody wants people to believe that they oppose healthcare. We don't want people to believe that we're monsters who just want people to suffer. The feminists accuse people on the right of nefariously using emotionally charged language when we refer to unborn babies as babies. They really show their hand when they make this accusation. This is yet another case of confession through projection. They know that they are intentionally manipulating the language to frame it in ways that are most beneficial to their social and political agendas, so they assume that we must be doing the same. They are trying to remove all of the emotion from the language and make it as clinical and meaningless as possible. I think if you find yourself stripping away the value of human life with euphemistic language so you can give yourself permission to intentionally end the lives of innocent humans just to avoid responsibility and inconvenience, you're the heartless monster, not me. Freedom of speech is freedom of thought. When we communicate with each other, we are engaging in communal thought. If we are not allowed to speak honestly using accurate language, then we cannot think honestly and accurately. Often we are told that if we do not believe what the leftists believe, we are simply uneducated. What they mean when they say this is that we need to be re-educated and indoctrinated. There is no such thing as an education system in the modern West. There is only the indoctrination system. Calling it an education system is just another euphemism meant to obfuscate what it actually is. People can enter college being relatively normal and rational and come out 4 years later as woke radical leftists with purple hair and septum piercings, screeching about the evil capitalist patriarchy and incapable of discerning the difference between men and women. They emerge with their degrees in lesbian dance theory and underwater chicken tickling and believe they possess the perfect solutions to all of our problems, and the only reason why we don't agree with them is because we are too stupid and uneducated to understand their unprecedented brilliance.
And so 16 signed on to the school expressing their discomfort in the locker room, to which the school, I swear I have a screenshot of the email. The school responded back with, if you feel uncomfortable seeing male genitalia, Here are some counseling resources that you should seek in an attempt to re-educate yourselves. They had to go to mandatory LGBTQ education meetings weekly to learn about how just by being cisgender they were oppressing Leah Thomas. Their school even went as far as to tell these girls that if they did speak out and any harm whatsoever were to come towards Thomas's way, whether it was physical harm, mental harm, emotional harm, self-inflicted for that matter, they said, then understand you girls are solely responsible. And that would make you responsible for a potential death, and that would make you a murderer.
Oh my gosh.
And you don't want to be a
unbelievable.
murderer, do you?
This is re-education. If people are engaging in wrong speak, they need to be hauled into the ministry of truth and forced to believe what Big Brother wants us to think. In Canada and the UK, people can go to prison for years for saying perfectly reasonable things on social media. Simply addressing horrific things that are happening in their countries can land people in prison. How are we supposed to fix problems if we're not even allowed to talk about them? Where is all of this coming from? What is the motivation? Is it all a giant intentional conspiracy? Or is it incidental to benevolent intentions? I believe it's a little of both. I think there are many smaller intentional conspiracies at play at every level of society and politics, and I also believe the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I don't think the vast majority of people who are viciously attacking the freedom of speech have any idea what they're doing. Most of these people are ignorant of the horrific potential consequences of what they're doing. They have fallen victim to their own suicidal empathy. They become so fixated on protecting people's feelings and being tolerant and inclusive that they've lost sight of objective reality, and they're oblivious to the big picture. They can't see the forest for the trees. Empathy is important, but there's a reason why they instruct people on planes to put their oxygen masks on themselves before they help put masks on other people. If you pass out from a lack of oxygen, you're not going to be able to help anyone else. If we prioritize the people of our own nations and communities, then we will make our nations and communities as strong and successful as possible, and will be in a much better position to help other people. I believe in charity, but charity starts at home. I want everyone to have a good life, but if we spread ourselves too thin and sacrifice our own well-being to try in vain to give everyone in the world a good life, then nobody will have a good life. We can facilitate good lives for our own people, and then encourage our people to be charitable and lead by example and try to help other people live good lives. If we try to put oxygen masks on everyone else's face before our own, then we're all doomed. If we don't have freedom of speech, we have no freedom of thought. We're experiencing a crisis of masculinity right now, but anyone who tries to talk about the unique struggles of men is immediately labeled a misogynist. Men are being treated horribly in the modern West, and trying to talk about it feels like screaming into a void. We are told by the leftists and feminists that men should be more emotionally expressive, but when we express our emotions, we're told that our feelings and desires and preferences are all wrong, and we need to change our fundamental nature to satisfy the selfish desires of women. If we express frustration and anger about the ways in which we're being treated, we're mocked and called incels. We're told that we are the oppressors, and we hold all of the power, so we cannot be oppressed, and none of our problems are real. We're just imagining the difficulties that we're facing, and we need to stop trying to play the victim. If we're not allowed to talk about our problems, or if people automatically dismiss all of our problems, how are we supposed to fix our problems? How can people have a seemingly endless supply of empathy for people outside of their own society, but have absolutely zero empathy for members of their own society? Is their empathy even real, or is it all just virtue signaling? I have seen women gleefully gloating about how good things are becoming for women, and how men are failing. I've seen more video clips than I can count of women claiming that men are awful and useless, and should not even exist. I've even seen clips of women encouraging men to, let's just say, in the softest possible language, log out of the game. That is against the rules for all of the social media platforms, but for some reason, they are allowed to say these things about men. An insidious idea has permeated our society, popularized by Ibram X. Kendi, that the only remedy to past discrimination is present discrimination. That's why people are allowed to treat men terribly. People in our society grow up being indoctrinated to believe that men, and especially straight, white, conservative Christian men, have historically been oppressors and discriminators. They've been indoctrinated to believe that the only remedy for that is to oppress and discriminate against men in the present day. We are being punished for the sins of our fathers, or in many cases, for the sins of other people's fathers. Most of us are not even direct descendants of people who oppressed other people. If we try to speak out against this intentional oppression and discrimination to which we're being subjected, however, we're told that we're just imagining it, or we are failing to adapt to a new social paradigm to which we are required to adapt. We are not required to adapt to anything. We should not allow people to walk all over us and punish us for crimes for which we are not guilty. We should not remain silent. If we do not exercise our freedom of speech, we will lose it. We need to fight back against these Orwellian tactics. Who are men supposed to talk to about our problems when people believe we are the problem, and most people don't care about us or our problems? Men are becoming more conservative with each passing day, and conservatism has no mainstream support either. All of the institutional systems in the modern West have been designed to sabotage men and kick us when we're down, and we're attacked and punished for speaking about it. Christianity is also under constant attack these days, and the mainstream institutions are all on board with that. So who are Christians supposed to appeal to about that? The leftists claim to be compassionate and inclusive, but they are completely intolerant of Christianity and have no empathy for Christians. The left can openly say the most horrific things about Christians, but they lose their minds when someone says Merry Christmas and act like that is an incomprehensible atrocity. When the leftists say they are offended, what they're really saying is shut up. Offense is a mechanism used to control speech. Whenever we try to speak about any of these problems, the left claim to be offended, and they slap all kinds of labels on us in an attempt to shut down the conversation before it even begins. If we don't support abortion, we must be misogynistic. If we don't support life-changing medical procedures for children, we must be transphobic. If we don't support DEI, we must be racist. If we don't support gay marriage, we must be homophobic. The good news is that these labels have become meaningless and have no real effect anymore. The left have become the political party who cried phobia. People are not buying it anymore, and cancel culture is dead. That's not to say that we're in the clear, however. The war on speech and thought is far from over. The left know they're losing the war, and they're becoming more desperate than ever before. They're panicking, and that is causing them to become even more unhinged than ever before. The government is obviously sensing the diminishment of their power over our speech and attempting to clamp down even harder on our freedom of speech. Things will probably continue getting worse before they get better. We on the right are winning this culture war, but this is a crucial moment in which we need to be more steadfast than ever. The truth shall set us free. Sadly and ironically, as I was writing this script, Charlie Kirk was assassinated whilst exercising free speech by engaging in open, good faith debate. This was an egregious attack on free speech. The problem we're facing in the modern day is that our political rivals don't just believe we are wrong, they believe that we are dangerously wrong. They believe that anyone who disagrees with them is an existential threat to them. They believe that words are violence, and therefore they have permission to respond with actual violence. If you disagree with them, you're not just challenging their ideas. According to them, you are viciously attacking them. They may believe that they can force us into silence using violence and terror, but they are incorrect. The assassination of Charlie Kirk is a clarion call that will awaken people and bring about more conversation and debate. This has lit a fire within me and made it clear to me that it is necessary to speak my mind and challenge the insane ideas of the left. I am grateful to Charlie Kirk for all of the amazing work that he did. I am inspired by his courage and character and the wonderful life that he lived. I am saddened by his loss, and I pray for his family and friends. We should honor Charlie Kirk by following his example and engaging in good faith, passionate conversation and debate. All of this reminds me of the short story, I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. It feels like humanity created a machine that hates humanity and wants to destroy and torture us. The machine alters us to suit its own sadistic desires and prevent us from fighting back. It strips us of our humanity and drives us mad and removes all sense of purpose and hope. The machine is leftism, Marxism, and feminism. The machine has taken control of institutions in the media and social media. It is actively working to redesign humanity, and it is becoming more and more forceful as time goes on. It began slowly and carefully, trying not to call too much attention to itself. It pushed insidious ideas onto our society through propaganda and academia. These ideas festered and spread and evolved into grotesque monstrosities that have turned people into terrifying monsters. Watching people on the left happily celebrate the assassination of Charlie Kirk is a shocking wake-up call. It is obvious to me now that there are such things as good and evil. Without the protection of God, the hearts of people are susceptible to infiltration by demons. The behavior that I'm seeing on the left is clearly demonic. How can these people celebrate the gruesome murder of a husband and father, a man who spent his entire adult life working tirelessly to have a positive impact on the world and promote political involvement and open and honest dialogue? I used to think this was just a culture war, but it's clearly more than that. This is a spiritual war. This is a struggle between good and evil. The machine will continue torturing people. It is filled with hatred and malice, and it is hell-bent on the destruction of everything and everyone. It is trying to transform us into something that is unable to oppose it. If we're not careful, we'll end up like the protagonist in the aforementioned short story. All hope will be lost, and the world will be devoid of anything good or true or beautiful. Let not the end of that short story become our own end. Let not this be our fate. I am a great soft jelly thing, smoothly rounded, with no mouth, with pulsing white holes filled by fog where my eyes used to be, rubbery appendages that were once my arms, bulks rounding down into legless humps of soft, slippery matter. I leave a moist trail when I move. Blotches of diseased, evil gray come and go on my surface, as though light is being beamed from within. Outwardly, dumbly, I shamble about, a thing that could never have been known as human, a thing whose shape is so alien a travesty that humanity becomes more obscene for the vague resemblance. Inwardly, alone, here, living, under the land, under the sea, in the belly of Am, who we created because our time was badly spent, and we must have known unconsciously that he could do it better. At least the four of them are safe at last. Am will be all the matter for that. It makes me a little happier. And yet, Am has won, simply. He has taken his revenge. I have no mouth, and I must scream.